That's a lot better. Peace and power, y'all. This is your brother, Baba Amin Ojuwoke, and this is a quick morning build. First giving thanks to the Creator for waking us up this morning, right? And also giving honor to our ancestors, without whom we wouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? As African people, we got more ancestors than everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And our ancestors have gone through and endured some of the worst atrocities in human history, so that you and I should be here, so could be here. So who are we to begin any endeavor without honoring them first? I pray that everybody's having a blacktastic day. I'm going to do a couple of housekeeping things here right quick. I'm gonna share this to my Facebook, just so just in case people are up and getting to it this morning, and want to want to build. Just want to build a little bit today. You know what I'm saying? Nothing wrong with a little build. Nothing wrong with starting the day off with a little knowledge, with us sharing with one another. If you are watching on YouTube, welcome. I appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe to the Uhuru Academy channel. We're not just building a school, y'all. We're building a school system. We're building schools. We're empowering families throughout the world to take our babies' education in their own hands. We believe in African-centered, empowerment-based education. And for the last really 30 years of my life, but 12 years as co-founder of the Uhuru Academy, and shout out to my beautiful wife, Nkoya Ojuwo. You know what I'm saying? We have worked in the community, tirelessly establishing African-centered schools and African-centered programs, in the Black community for our people, right? And so, yeah, it's an honor, y'all. It's an honor, and I pray everyone feels empowered this morning. I do, man. I pray that everyone feels empowered. I pray that everyone is achieving their goals this week. That everyone is uplifting somebody else this week. And I'm just going to share this right quick. Join me on this morning's build, right? And let me do this. Let me do this. You get clumsy when you're trying to hurry up. You know what I'm saying? You get clumsy when you're trying to hurry up. Let me tag just a few people, man. Let me just tag a few people that I know generally be on the lookout for my videos, supporters of our school, supporters of our movement. All right. And then we're going to get into it, y'all. We're going to get into it because I got class this morning. I'm here at the Uhuru Academy, South Carolina, UASC International Learning Center, where I manage the high school as well as teach African history to the students. I'm also a consultant here at the school as well. And man, when I tell you, it's an honor to be a part of this team, and a fantastic team we have out here. This campus program is really the model. It's really a global model of what an African-centered, STEAM-focused campus should look like. You know what I'm saying? And function like. And so I just want to shout out to the team here at UASC. You know what I'm saying? Without a doubt, a magnificent squad. And it's just an honor, you know what I'm saying? An honor to be here and to be a part of it, right? To be a part of everything. And I ain't gonna lie, we relocated to South Carolina from Fort Worth, Texas, going on 3 years now, and it kind of feel like we've been kind of out of the way. You know what I'm saying? Because we live in a rural area now. It's kind of away from the hustle and the noise of the streets. It's been quiet. It's been quiet, but it's been cool because we've worked so hard over the years, and just being out here the past 3 years has kind of given us an opportunity to kind of rest and heal up a little bit, and put things in perspective and focus on parenting our younger children. My wife and I, we raised 8 children. 4 out of the house, 4 still in the house, and so being here has allowed us to kind of focus more, because over the years our children have had to share us, with the movement. They've had to share us with our business goals. They've had to share us with the community, and just kind of being out here, being kind of out of the way, allows us to spend more time and focus on our family and our goals as a family and what we want to accomplish. And so many times as activists, we get so caught up in activism, so caught up in what we want to do. Even as business people, we get so caught up in building a business. And when you're an entrepreneur, you don't get to work 8 hours a day, then come home and plan your family time all the time. And sometimes we'll get so caught up in our mission, that our family, our personal families, miss out on us. Our personal families lose out, because you're not able to spend that same time with them. You're always at a meeting, you're always at a rally, you're always at a conference, you're always giving a lecture or passing out clothes or walking the hood or teaching a class. And because you're always doing that, your own children don't hardly get to see you. And so being out here has allowed us to focus a little bit more on our own children. And so that's been a blessing. And I want to say asante sana to everyone who supported us along the way, everyone who's donated to the school, everyone who's just given us kind words, offered us prayer. I want to say asante sana for that. All right. Now, this morning's build, though, right? This morning's build is called the state of the streets. And you might be like, Bob, I mean, how you going to talk about the state of the streets? Because some of y'all just know me as Baba Amin, and you've heard our music, and I perform with my wife a lot, and I'm super positive and motivational all the time. State of the streets, and please excuse if my connection becomes unstable, right? But what does Baba mean talking about the state of the streets, right? And what a lot of people don't know is, right, my ministry started in the streets. My teaching, my first classroom was in the streets. I grew up in the hood myself. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in Stop Six in Fort Worth, Texas. Graduated from Dunbar High School. And I wasn't a church boy. I wasn't somebody that was hidden from everything and untouched by everything. But I was a good student. In school, but I came outside and played throw up tackle with everybody, and had my share of fights and running around the neighborhood or whatever. I was a part of the fabric of my neighborhood. And I witnessed my neighborhood go under. I witnessed the crack era coming in, to our neighborhood. And I often tell young people, man, that they're kind of blessed that well, no, not that they're blessed. I tell young people often that I feel sorry for them in the sense that they've never seen a Black community without crack cocaine in it, right? And I have. I have. Those of you who are my age or older, you remember Black. There's always been some type of drugs in the Black community, right? But the crack era was something different. The crack era was something entirely different, man. When crack cocaine came through the Black community, and I'm talking about from coast to coast, it ravaged the Black community. I saw airline mechanics turn into drug addicts and lose their job and lose their families and lose their children. I saw mothers turn to the streets, beautiful women who used to wear an apron, and I saw those mothers, turn to the streets and get addicted to drugs. It's this drug that hit our neighborhood that was cheap, that had an intense yet short lasting high, and it destroyed so many families. And at the same time, it made some families rich. For the first time, I saw our neighborhood really turn into the haves and the have-nots, like a real science experiment, and a test of our mettle, a test of our moral fortitude, when the crack epidemic hit. Because right at that same time, in the early 80s, when that crack epidemic hit, you also had a recession happening. You also had jobs being lost, factories closing their doors, and that sort of thing. So you have a community that's facing an economic depression, while at the same time, you got this new cheap drug on the streets that's providing a way of escape, a way for some to escape poverty and for others to escape reality. And I witnessed our neighborhoods transform from a place where you could leave your front door open and just have your screen door open, transform from a place where your neighbor can get on you just like your parents can get on you. And I watched it transform into a war zone. I watched it transform into a place to where you guarantee somebody gonna break in your house sooner or later. A place where when walking to school, you had to watch where you walk. Hanging out at night, you had to watch where you were, watch what you were doing. I've watched young people make a tremendous amount of money all of a sudden. Then, towards the late 80s into the early 90s, at least where I'm from, the street gang thing started happening. The street organizations from the West Coast came into our city. And Fort Worth in particular became a hotbed for gang activity, a hotbed for the Blood and Crip War. I was right there. Now, I wasn't a Blood, I wasn't a Crip, right? And it wasn't that I was scared or anything like that. I was just smart. I just thought that it wasn't going anywhere. No offense to my homies that made that leap. So it was never something that really interested me. But by the early 90s, it got really bad. And I'd went off to college. And after my first year in college, I wanted to get involved. I started studying our story. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James. I read The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, right? And I'm looking at what's going on at home, and I'm losing friends. Friends are getting locked up. Friends are getting killed. And I'm like, man, what's going on in the streets? Now, there's always been a street element in the neighborhood, right? Particularly where I'm from, because Fort Worth is a vice town. Now, the Black community was built by the streets in Fort Worth. Just go check the history. The streets built the Black community in Fort Worth. Fort Worth is a vice town. So there's always been a street element, right? But in the 70s, you know what I'm saying? There was more of an understanding. You had Black business ownership. And then, yeah, you had that underground too. But every community in America has an underground. The Italians have an underground. The Jews have an underground. The Irish have an underground. And there's always been a partnership between underground business and above the ground business. Always. The Black community is no different. There's always been a partnership between the underground and those that are above the ground. Always. And a healthy community generally has a healthy underground and a healthy above the ground. They have an underground that's doing business in the vice trades, because vice is the trade in the United States, whether you like it or not. Gambling and partying and all that. That's a vice. Those are vice trades. Okay. And so you have the vice trades. Okay. And then you have the above the ground trades, your electricians, your plumbers, you have your stores, your storekeepers, right? Right? Your real estate people. And sometimes these people do business with each other. Sometimes these are the same people. It's how America is built. However, when you live in a situation where profit is made from the criminalization of Black people, when you have a multi-billion-dollar prison industry that needs inmates, certain populations are criminalized simply for following the same pattern that other populations follow. Now we're talking about the streets. Now we're talking about the Black community. So the Black community traditionally, right, has not been able to have or establish an economic foothold, a strong economic footing in America. And whenever the Black community has attempted to do so, it's been disrupted. Now you might be thinking, yeah, Ku Klux Klan, that ain't what I'm talking about. But yes, did the Klan, for example, in the South, during Reconstruction in the early 1900s, did the rise of the Ku Klux Klan and white institutions supported by the state move in and chase Black people off of their hard-earned land? They absolutely did. During the 40s and 50s and 60s, when Black people began to migrate north, when Black people got into these urban centers, did these cities politically work to suppress, oppress, and exploit Black people when they came into Chicago, came into New York? Absolutely, they did. Went out to Los Angeles? Absolutely, they did. Even with the integration agenda, did y'all notice that there was no economic agenda that came with integration? Integration was all about mobility. Integration was all about our ability to spend our dollars in non-Black institutions. It was never about promoting Black-owned institutions and helping Black-owned institutions get dollars outside of the Black community. But it took money from the Black community. And when that money was taken from the Black community because we began to move out of the community, We began to just get jobs and not own businesses in our community. When the money started leaving our community, there was no influx of investment coming into our community. And when that happens, when black businesses began to shut down because freeways were being built right through the middle of the hood, rendering stores and shops obsolete. When the economic attack happened on the black community, that above ground business suffered, and it caused an imbalance to where underground business kind of became the business. So you no longer have the black insurance man you can go see, the black dentist that you can go see to invest in your business. You no longer have the black doctor, the black lawyer in the neighborhood that can sponsor the little league team. Now all of a sudden the heroes and the sheroes are the underground business people. And underground business people are not able to parlay their funds into above the ground businesses because the above the ground businesses are gone. Please come on in. And even when you have the above the ground businesses in the community, the people of the community are now shopping at stores that they used to couldn't go to. So now you have black owned stores and shops suffering economically too. So now the streets become more prevalent inside the black community, more prominent than even the streets want to be. Because now you're looking at this underground king and you saying, hey, do some above the ground investing. But the underground king's like, no, I'm underground. If I come up front, anything I put my money on, when they come get me, they can come get that. So now the black community is in the catch 22. Throw in the scourge of drugs. Throw in identity crisis when it came to gangs and getting involved in street organizations and young people going to war. And by the time the 90s hit, man, you got a time bomb. My story and perspective is a little unique because I, quote unquote, came off the porch as a teacher. I left college. I left college after my freshman year. Well, I left my first college after my freshman year. I walked away from a scholarship and I went home to Fort Worth and I began to work in the peace process between gangs. I began to be a part of the solutions. I came home to be a part of the solution. I was initially studying the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. I was studying our history, and I was only studying it because I wanted to make an impact. And I wanted to make a positive impact on the community and use what I learned as a tool to enlighten others and turn folks around and turn their mindset around. So I came off the porch literally as a teacher. I would ride the bus to Butler housing, the so-called housing projects. You know what I'm saying? At the time, at the height of the Fort Worth gang wars. Now, I'm from Stop 6, which is generally a blood neighborhood. I used to ride the bus over to Butler housing, which was a Crip neighborhood. At that time, the bus wouldn't even go all the way into the neighborhood. It wouldn't even approach the neighborhood. It would come to a main street that's on the outskirts of Butler. I'd have to get off the bus and walk into the neighborhood and walk through that neighborhood armed with nothing except the truth, my honest intentions, and a determination to make a difference. So I was in the streets, but I was in the streets as a teacher. I was in the streets greeting people with Black power. What's happening, brother? What's happening, sister? I was in the streets teaching Black history classes at the community center. Then when I got through, I hung out in the streets. I went to the same club. I went to the hood club with everybody else. Ran around with everybody else. So I'm qualified to speak on the state of the streets. I'm qualified to speak on the streets because I'm a street scholar. And I've been a street scholar for over 30 years. Because after that first generation, that first wave of young people that I work with, that first wave of Crips and Bloods that I went on the tour of the South with, that second wave, their little brothers and sisters, I was working with them too. I took a gang of them on a trip across the country. Then a wave after that, I worked with them too. So I can speak on the streets. I can speak on the state of the streets. I'm still engaged and involved with street involved youth. Not on the same scale as back in the day, you know what I'm saying? Bob done got a little, I done got a little older, I've established the Uhuru Academy and I'm focusing on building a school system because I want to establish a legacy and I want to establish a lasting institution in our community that we could build and hold on to that'll continue to bring light to our young people and opportunities to young people. But I'm still engaged with street involved youth. I'm engaged with brothers who do what I do. I'm engaged with brothers who are boots on the ground in our neighborhoods. And what I'm seeing when I'm looking around, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna try not to compare eras because a lot of us, when we get older, we like to say, oh, it's worse than when we were young. Nah, I won't say worse. It's different. Because when I was younger, when I was in my 20s and in my late teens and my 20s, and I was doing this work, you know what I'm saying? We had our issues. We had severe issues. We definitely had issues with violence. We definitely had issues with homicides and fratricide. We definitely had issues with drug use, drug abuse. We had serious issues. We had mass incarceration issues. We had serious issues. We had issues where we weren't supporting each other's Black owned businesses. We had serious issues. And these are our children. Now our children and grandchildren are in the streets. And they've carried on a lot of the bad habits that we had, but a lot of those bad habits are now amplified because part of the reason everybody's their own media now. Ooh, that's social media, the social media element. See, what happens, y'all, is when you growing up in poverty, and if and you're not in a positive situation. Like when you grow up in poverty, getting money is not just about survival. And that would be cool if it was just about that. If the focus was we want to improve our way of life, then you see more of us get money in the underground and parlay it into over the ground because we want this money to last. We're thinking about our children. We're thinking I'm not going to be in this thing forever. I have to look legit, just like mafia, just like other groups. I have to put up a legit appearance. We need to build up our legitimate community because that's what's going to protect our underground community, right? But when the legit community has been destroyed, when those of us who are not engaged in criminal activity or we raised just get a job and move out of the neighborhood, there is no above the ground, below the ground relationship, right? And then when you in a society where you're not taught who you are, when you in a society where you begin your history in slavery, you're an N word, you're a B word, right? Now you poor. Now getting money is there's just as much about identity as it is about life, as it is about survival. It's just as much about being respected. It's just as much about feeling whole, feeling like you're somebody because your default is that you're nobody. So when it's just as much about showing others that you have something, right? Than it is about having something. You put that attitude and combine it with a technology that allows you to show the world, what are you going to get? You're going to get a bunch of young people running around doing things. You're going to get an underground economy, right? An underground business class that's now telling on itself because they need you to know that they're doing it way more than they need to get away with it. They can't get over the need to have people look and be in awe of them because they have no other identity to stand on. They're not starting with a good identity. So when I can put money across my arm and show everybody, all I'm saying is I'm somebody. I'm worth something. But you only have to show people that you're worth something if you already don't believe it. If it isn't internalized inside of you, because when it's internalized, when your value is internalized here, you don't need everybody to see it. It comes out in your energy, it comes out in your attitude, so you don't have to show everybody what you're doing. See, when it becomes as just as much about identity as it is about survival, you're gonna make a whole video vlog about who you want to kill and who you want to hurt. You're gonna get on the camera and say, "Yeah, my ops over here and ops over there and ops show me, show me, show me." Low self-esteem and social media and crime is a bad mix. You can't establish a strong underground economy when you can't resist the urge to tell everybody above the ground what you're doing. But these are our children. And it's us too. I'm seeing young men my age who are street involved or grew up in the streets, or maybe they've been locked up and came home and now they're finding YouTube money by going on YouTube and kind of glorifying the lifestyle that they used to live. And they beefing and talking to each other and exposing each other. Again, because it's just as much about identity and self-respect as it is about getting the job done, about breaking the cycle. We have our young children who are finding, getting these little checks from YouTube and finding a little fame, making op music. Because you have companies out there that are more than willing to invest in Black people who reinforce stereotypes. They making the op music, they getting the weapons and all that, and they flashing all the guns and all that on the video at each other, as if that's going to protect them from each other, as if that's going to make them safe. I see scared children. I see scared children who don't know who they are, don't know who the enemy is, and don't know who their friends are. I see scared children that don't understand the potential that they have if they just united with one another. I see warriors, afraid warriors, but warriors who could carry our community into the future with pride if only they knew they had the power to do that. But this is the result of the integration generation. This is the result of having parents in a Black middle class and a Black upper middle class that's more focused on inclusion and acceptance than investing in its own future, investing in its own community. This is what you get. This is what you get when you don't establish and build communities that when babies walk outside, they see a mural of Malcolm, they see a mural of Martin, they see a mural of Fannie Lou Hamer, they see African kings and queens lining the walls up and down the street. They get into the school and the school is full of Black achievement, Black achievement, Black achievement, letting them know you could be a scientist, you could be an archaeologist, you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, a teacher, an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter. That when you don't make sure that you take advantage of these new rights that you got in the civil rights movement to build something strong, build powerful imagery for the next generation to see, this is what you get. When you teach a message that the goal is to be accepted, the goal is to do what you have to do, get a high school diploma, go to college, and somebody out here will hire you. You have some babies that got in their spirit, I don't want to be hired, I want to do the hiring. You got some babies having their spirit, I want to be right here, I want to plant roots right here. Why can't we make money right here? Why are we not building up our community? Why are we not building up our neighborhoods? Why are we not fixing the torn down houses? I'm never leaving here. And there's nothing wrong with the sentiment that you're not going to leave your community. But when you're not raised to take care of it, when you're not taught the politics, you're not taught the economics, this is what you get. So what we see in the streets today is the natural continuation of the onslaught that was put on the Black community back then. These are the children of the crack era. These are the children of the so-called gang banging era. These are the children of the integration era. And we had several leaders back in the day warning us that this would happen. So we may see we're looking at a resurgence of mass incarceration. We're looking at a resurgence of drug addiction. We're looking at poor economics, even poorer and less ownership in property in our community. State of the streets. Now, I'm not saying there's nobody out here trying to do some positive things. Matter of fact, I know some OGs out there that's trying to hold on, man. They trying to keep the children fed in the community. They trying to get people unified, trying to get people organized. But a lot of them are getting drowned out by the noise, and a lot of them are being criminalized and caught up and can't rise above because of the image that's already being painted out there. I know some guys in the rap game that's making some money that are trying to parlay that, some professional athletes that are trying to parlay that into opportunity in the community, opportunities in their neighborhoods, ownership in their neighborhoods. They're being blocked by politics. They're being blocked by a fear of having or being seen standing next to somebody who can't stay off of Instagram. Maybe somebody that's an underground businessman that they could probably do some great work together, but I can't stand next to you because every time you got a brick, you got to show everybody on social media. Every time you get a op, you got to talk to your op over social media, make threats over social media. The state of the streets. Perhaps the saddest aspect of the current state of the streets is that we still don't own too many of them. We still don't own that many streets. We have another generation that's fighting over streets they don't own. We have another generation that instead of buying the block, they banging on the block, making money, and then buying from somebody else, buying from others, buying from white folks, buying from Asians. So that money ain't even circulating in the community. The black dollar is not circulating any more right now than it was 30 years ago. And it may be getting even worse. So cats can talk all they want to about how many records a rapper is selling, or how much money this person is making, or this dude a real one right here, he on the block. This dude right here, he a real one. That dude right there get at his ops. This cat, he a real stepper. But ain't nobody stepping to the property tax office and buying property. Ain't none of these steppers stepping up with some deeds. Nobody's taking over the store. Nobody's opening the cleaners. Nobody's taking over the laundromat. Nobody's taking over the check loan place. Ain't nobody's stepping. We need steppers that's gonna step into the street and own the street. Rename the street instead of putting free my homie or rest in peace homie on your shirt. Buy the street and start a petition and name that street Homie Avenue. Name a street after your home. Provide affordable housing and protection to people in your community. So whenever you step up and you look at the state of the streets and you look at young people in the streets, old people in the streets, and they only claim the fame is the car they buy and the money that they can display, the streets are in bad shape. Because these are just people looking for identity. These are not people looking for success, not people looking for not people looking for survival, not people that's looking to establish a legacy. They just looking to establish an image. I've never seen streets so loud before. Don't let these white folks fool you and trick you into getting on the microphone and bragging about an aspect of our culture that number one, you probably not all that involved in. But number two, it's an aspect of our culture that they want to put on Front Street so they can paint us all with a broad brush. They want to reinforce the same stereotypes that Thomas Jefferson talked about way back in slavery days. That you're lazy, you're childlike, you don't want to work, you don't know anything about math and science, you're only good for having fun and doing music, you know tune and time, but you don't know anything about reasoning. We have to stop reinforcing that. And that's the trap. And it's funny that we call some of the music trap music, but y'all think you talking about dope bars. You don't understand that the trap is deeper than that. And unfortunately, the streets has fallen into that trap. Now, I got to go because I got a classroom to do today. We have some students, what I'm saying? And to me, when I'm teaching them every day, I'm battling. I'm in a cultural war, a spiritual war every day, empowering my students to be soldiers out there in the streets, soldiers out there in the community, a resource for their friends. When they talk to them, that my students can tell you why you shouldn't go shoot your ops. My students can tell you why you shouldn't say that on Instagram. My students would tell you, they could tell you why you should stay in school. So I got to get on my mission today. But that's my state of the streets. And I want to make this a series. My next video is going to be called State of the Streets Part 2, The Birth of the Crash Dummy. Yo, this has been the Morning Bill with Baba Amin. Y'all have a blacktastic day. Let's get to work. Peace.